Right, we now come to the urgent question. Shadow Secretary of State Alan Mack.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To ask the Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology if he will make a statement on AstraZeneca.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, as the largest company listed on the London Stock Exchange, employing more than 10,000 people and investing around £2.5 billion every year in the UK, AstraZeneca is a close and valued partner to this government and is critical to the UK's thriving life sciences sector. We saw this in the COVID-19 pandemic when AstraZeneca partnered with Oxford University to create a safe and effective vaccine which was manufactured and distributed around the world, saving millions of lives. This type of partnership for the prevention of illness is critical to achieving this government's ambition to reduce the burden on the NHS. AstraZeneca's decision not to invest in Speak Liverpool is therefore deeply disappointing and follows intensive work and collaboration between the government and the company. This collaboration on Speak dates back to 2020 and led to an announcement at Spring Budget 2024, where AstraZeneca set out their intention to invest £450 million into their flu vaccine manufacturing facility. To secure this investment, the previous Chancellor provided assurance of Her Majesty's Government support, valued at around £90 million, subject to successful completion of due diligence. This support was based on His Majesty's Government's initial assessment of figures provided by the company. Both the previous government and this government have always made clear that full due diligence will be required before a final government offer could be confirmed. Since the spring budget of 2024, AstraZeneca confirmed a significant change in the composition of their proposed investment, resulting in a smaller level of research and development being conducted in the UK. As the honourable member would expect, this change in AstraZeneca's UK investment resulted in a corresponding change in government support. Our revised government offer sought to ensure value for money for the taxpayer and followed due diligence of the investment put forward by AstraZeneca. We remain closely engaged with AstraZeneca as we develop our new industrial strategy, build a health system fit for the future and drive up economic growth. The government will release its industrial strategy containing a comprehensive plan for growing the life sciences sector in the spring. This will build on the significant momentum generated by the plan for growth, including delivery of the Oxford-Cambridge Growth Corridor, as well as the budget announcement of the Life Sciences Innovative Manufacturing Fund, the suite of inward investment announced at the International Investment Summit, and strategic partnerships announced with Oxford Nanopore and Eli Lilly.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, for granting this urgent question. Just 5 days ago, the Chancellor gave another speech about growth, designed to divert attention away from the total lack of growth caused by Labour's high taxes and anti-business approach. The Chancellor specifically praised AstraZeneca. She knew the last Conservative government had successfully negotiated a deal for Britain's biggest public company to invest £450 million into Britain's economy. Under the Conservative deal, Mr Speaker, AstraZeneca would have expanded their flu vaccine factory on Merseyside, creating new jobs, improving the UK's pandemic preparedness and sending a clear message to the world that Britain's life sciences sector is open for business. But, Mr Speaker, instead, Labour have cut the funding we agreed and imposed a national insurance jobs tax. This has destroyed the business case for expanding the factory and the deal is now off. So can the Minister explain why the Science Secretary failed to stand up to the Chancellor when she cut his funding, destroying the deal and handing high-quality jobs and investment to our competitors? Mr Speaker, in the last 12 months, AstraZeneca have committed to investing over £1 billion in Singapore, nearly £3 billion in the US and over £450 million in Canada. They could have invested £450 million in our country too. So what is the government doing now to bring back the jobs and investment they've just turned away? Mr Speaker, by last July, all that was required was Labour to confirm they would proceed with our deal. AstraZeneca wrote to the Chancellor and the Science Secretary on the 9th of July, but received no reply. They wrote to the Business Secretary in early July too, but he fobbed them off. The company didn't receive their answer until last October. By then it was too late to deliver this project, and now the deal is dead. So will the Minister and the Science Secretary write to the Chair of the Science Select Committee, offering to appear before her and her committee to explain what went wrong and how this failure can be avoided in the future? Mr Speaker, delivering this deal secured by the Conservatives was a big test of Labour's economic credibility, and they have failed. In the same week they talked about growth, they botched a deal that was vital to our economy. Labour promised growth but delivered failure and let Britain down again.
Minister.
What utter nonsense. We endured 14 years of growth which even his own backbenchers used to describe as anaemic and feeble. Average growth under Tory governments, 1.2%. Average growth under Labour governments, 2.4%. You are far more likely to secure growth in the British economy under a Labour government. And he simply didn't listen to what I had to say. They sat on this so-called deal with AstraZeneca for 4 years. The process started in 2020. And it's quite interesting what was actually announced to the House and what was actually announced in the paperwork. In the House, the then Chancellor said that AstraZeneca had announced plans to invest to fund the building of a manufacturing hub in Speke in Liverpool. He didn't make any mention in this chamber, Mr. Speaker, of the money that was needed from his department to be able to pay for it. But in the paperwork that attended it, it said AstraZeneca's investment decision is contingent upon mutual agreement with the UK government and third parties and successful completion of regulatory processes. And this was absolutely typical of the previous government. They thought that when they'd announced something that it had come to pass. But actually what you have to do is due diligence to make sure that you're securing for the British taxpayer the best possible financial advantage. And what we've seen quite clearly is that what happened last year was that the original intention from AstraZeneca was to deliver £150 million worth of R&D. They then decided to cut that to something like £90 million worth of R&D. That was their decision based on their own investment decisions. And we, of course, as government, had to assess whether £90 million from the UK, as supposedly promised by the previous Chancellor, was the right amount of money to put into the pot, or whether it was better to offer something slightly less. Unfortunately, at the end of that process, AstraZeneca decided that they weren't going to proceed. But let me just make it absolutely clear to him. This is the best country in the world to invest in the private sector. £63 billion of investment secured in the Growth Summit in last year. £14 billion.
Sorry. The Secretary of State, Shadow Secretary of State for Wales, keeps pushing it a little bit. I think we've heard no more. Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. £14 billion secured following the announcement of our AI Opportunities Plan. We've cut the rate of corporation tax to 25%, the lowest in the G7. We're creating a pension mega fund to be able to invest further. We are, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers' last CEO survey, for the first time ever, we're the second best place in the world to invest in the government, and that's because we have a Labour government, not a Conservative reject.
Chair Morrow, Chair of the Select Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So the UK government is committed to growing the economy through increased R&D and advanced manufacturing. AstraZeneca tell us they are committed to investing in the UK, which is where they are headquartered and where one of their largest customers, the NHS, is based. It's like hearing that two people are madly in love with each other and yet the wedding is off. And I do look forward to the Minister of State for Science explaining to the Select Committee the background to this when he appears before us next week. But in the meantime, could the Minister confirm that UK is committed to incentivising R&D investment? Could he set out the mix of R&D and manufacturing investment which was agreed to by AstraZeneca under the last government and to which it was committed when it dropped the deal? And finally, as well as growing the economy, this deal would have made our pandemic supply chain, more resilient by reducing our dependence on mRNA vaccines. Will he set out how he intends to address that?
Well, I want to make it absolutely clear, first of all, and it's good to hear from my fellow on our benches and chair of the Select Committee. I want to make it absolutely clear that AstraZeneca is not leaving. There are not people losing their jobs because of this decision. There are still 10,000 people employed by AstraZeneca in the UK, and for that matter, they are proceeding with their nasal-based vaccine for flu for children, but they're just doing it in a different way. All of that is important. She asked me about the precise details of the R&D mix that was part of this investment. It was, as I said, to have been £150 million of investment. They decided to cut that to 90 million, and that's why then the contribution that the previous Chancellor had suggested of 90 million into that pot simply didn't add up for the UK taxpayer, and that's why we came to that set of decisions. But she's absolutely right. We are fundamentally committed to the life sciences sector, both for the saving of life, for making sure that we have an NHS that can really deliver for people, and because we want to have valuable jobs that we do better in this country than anywhere else in the world.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Victoria Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This news is yet another disappointing day for the UK's investment landscape. We could be a global leader in innovation, but ever since the previous Conservative government's scrapping of the industrial strategy, businesses are left without certainty. The life science sector is vital, not just for economic growth, but for our health and technological innovation. It contributes over 43 billion to the UK economy, supports thousands of highly skilled jobs, and drives breakthrough in medicine and healthcare. Yet, in conversations I've had with businesses, I hear time and again how the UK's fragmented approach to investment is holding them back, which is why I've highlighted those concerns in previous questions to the Secretary of State. The government has promised to publish Invest 2035 this spring, but right now companies still have no detail on what support will be available and when. Without urgent action, we risk more world-leading firms following AstraZeneca's lead and taking their investment elsewhere. Will the Minister please confirm exactly when the final Investment 2035 strategy will be published? The government says the decision was based on value for money, so will the Minister and Secretary of State publish also the impact assessment so we can see for ourselves?
I'm afraid I'm going to have to write to her on that last point. I'm not precisely sure what where we're at on an impact assessment, but she's absolutely right that the life sciences sector in the UK generated something like £108 billion in turnover in the UK in the financial year ending in 2022, a sharp 13% increase from the previous year. We want to build on that into the future, and it's been seeing year-on-year growth since the financial year ending 2015, and turnover is now 40% higher in the financial year, as I said, ending 2022. That's why we are keen to publish, as part of our industrial strategy, our precise plans for the financial services sector. We said that that's going to be in spring. It certainly felt like winter still in the Rhondda at the weekend, so I'm afraid she's going to have to wait for spring to spring.
Bill Esterson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AstraZeneca is a key partner in the Liverpool City Region Life Sciences Innovation Zone, as is McGill Health Park in my constituency, with their plans for research and development. But can I ask my honourable friend to confirm that the government will engage with partners in the City Region, including the University of Liverpool, the Metro Mayor Steve Rotherham, council leaders and of course the region's MPs, to try and recover ground on this deal, which will add to the success we already see with AstraZeneca in the City Region and across the country?
Minister.
Well, of course, regional mayors have a very important role to play in helping bring investment into key areas, and I'm very happy to make sure that the meetings that he's referred to take place. This has to be a joint venture between everybody, but I do want to underline that it's not that AstraZeneca are leaving the United Kingdom or that they don't have confidence in the United Kingdom. They clearly do. They invest more than £2.5 billion every single year into the UK economy, and they're a key partner for the UK and will continue to be so.
Kit Malthouse.
Mr. Speaker, what a shame the Minister's chosen to substitute aggression for what should be regret. Whichever way you want to paint it, is obviously a terrible failure of negotiation. Now, I'm a chair of the All-Party Group for Life Sciences. I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that this is a terrible blow, not just for Speak and for Liverpool, the city of my birth, but also for our vaccination development environment generally. The lack of this production facility means there won't be a pull for vaccination development in the UK and the various technologies that come with it. And my question to the Minister is, what's he going to do to replace it?
Minister.
Well, I think he makes one very good point. And of course we feel regretful about this. We would prefer to have got this over the line, and it wasn't possible. In large measure because AstraZeneca decided that it didn't add up in whatever particular way for them. Now, he's absolutely right that we want to have a manufacturing provision in the country as well, and that's one of the things that my colleague, Lord Vallance, is working on very closely with the sector.
Paula Barker.
Mr. Speaker, Friday's announcement was deeply disappointing, and the Liverpool City region is home to one of Europe's largest pharma clusters. The government were prepared to put millions into the project with AstraZeneca, and that they have now walked away from. So is that money still on the table for other viable life science projects in our region? And will the government make a commitment to meet with our Metro Mayor Steve Rotherham to discuss this further?
Minister.
That's the cleverest bid for finance that I've ever heard, I think. So she gets an award for that. But she's right, of course, that we stand ready at any point to be able to assist key investments of this nature, especially in the life sciences sector. The difference between the amount of money that was made available was theoretically, I should say, made available by the previous government, and the amount that we were prepared to put forward was remarkably small. So the issue is how we can make sure that similar investments do get over the line. And of course, somebody from the department will meet with Steve Rotherham.
Esther McNay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. How does losing £450 million of investment on Merseyside and into the wider North West area equate with the Chancellor's stated priority of economic growth?
Minister. Well,
she puts it in a particular way, but it's not a way that is consonant with the facts. The fact is that this hadn't been signed, it hadn't been got over the line by the previous government. As I said previously, quite often what the previous government did was they would announce things and not actually deliver in the end. The Chancellor made it very, very clear in the documents that accompanied the budget in 2024, in spring 2024, that all of this was contingent, his words, not my word, contingent upon due diligence. The government then hadn't yet done the